I want to say off the bat, John, I stand in solidarity with you, and congratulations on getting the new Lady Vols coach upset with you within the first 2 days of her taking the job.
Oh, by
You
the way,
know,
by the way, we had 3 videos get over like 5,000 views, and all 3 of them had that in it. So what the hell did you do to make her so mad, John?
you know, I didn't get that at all. I wasn't paying any attention to it. I didn't even think anything of it when I asked. It was just an average question. I just asked her if, when she made this new transition, if there was a chance she would modify her approach with her system at a higher level of basketball. And I thought she gave a good direct answer. She said, "I wouldn't be here if I didn't, couldn't do that. Didn't think I could do that." So I don't know why there was such a hubbub on social media about it. I didn't get that at all because uh, part of it might be that at so many of these press conferences involving UT people, I mean, the questions are so soft that if you just ask a normal question, yeah, I mean, you could, if you don't, you're expected to ask a question like, "Coach, how did you become so wonderful?" And I mean, anything other than that, I guess it's perceived as like, "Ooh, boy, that was a tough question." Tough question. So I didn't get any of that, and I didn't think her reaction was anything, against me at all. I didn't think anything of it. But I mean, I've had coaches stare daggers at me, so that I just wouldn't have thought that. And I care so much about what coaches think, so that would have been very hurtful.
I can tell. But let me ask you this. Do you think that she wanted to make a statement and used your question as a jumping off point? That's what I want to ask you. And it's brought to you by our good friends at Newbert Collision Center. John, I want to ask you that in 15 seconds.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Okay, so when Kim Stevens, the new coach, is introduced for the Lady Vols, I'm curious, when you asked that question, which was, do you feel certain that your offense, your approach can work at this level? And she had the strong response. Do you think she was looking for a moment that she could assert her confidence over a group of fans that have pretty high expectations, John?
No, I don't think that was, I mean, she might, I don't think she was like ready for that question. Again, I just didn't think the question was that significant. I thought it was just an average question to ask, because particularly when you're going into a transitional year, and I think it was a good press conference answer. It was a very good, hey, we do what we do, and other people better start worrying about us. But I think when she looks at her roster and sees her players on video, she's probably going to need to modify that a little bit. And ultimately, I mean, I guess she'll stick with her system, but I think, this roster was not designed for run and gun 94 feet of basketball.
Yeah, Caleb, I want you to get in that as well. I mean, how much of a transition do you think this is? And then we're going to get into the Nico Maleava storyline, which is that I think a lot of people already consider him a star, which is very intriguing to me. But first, your thoughts on her response to the question, and can you win with her up and down style in this day and age of women's basketball? It's such a departure from what Pat Summitt did.
Yeah, I think you can win. I mean, I'm totally with John. I think you need you're going to have to up the size of the players when you get to this level that can play the up and down style if you want to if you want to win at the level she won at the lower levels. But yeah, there's no reason to believe you can't win. I definitely think that I mean, I will go even further, and this is I know I sound like the "and Danny we trust" type of guy, but I'm like, I don't think Danny White would have hired her if he didn't think it could translate to this next level either. And he does have a pretty good track record of hiring. As much as he does love up-tempo styles, no matter what the sport is, in case you guys haven't noticed, Danny White just really likes fast-paced sports in general, because that's all he hires for in coaches. He seems to always hire the ones that work out at the higher level too.
John, this fast-paced style seems to be the creme de la creme. It seems to be the thing to do lately. Iowa's doing it, but they have Caitlin Clark, who is pretty good. Is this up-tempo thing a trend that Tennessee should be able to take advantage of, or ultimately do you still have to be pretty big in the post to be able to win championships?
Well, look at South Carolina. That's the standard.
True.
They can play any kind of style you want to play. They play pretty up tempo, but they also work through the post when they set up in their half court offense. I mean, you need both. You look at LSU; its post players can run pretty well. So I mean, it could play that up tempo game. Kim Caldwell's style is really at the far end of the spectrum. It's very up tempo. I mean, it against James Madison, I think it took almost 100 shots. It was an overtime game, but they're really going up tempo, and she substitutes frequently. So you're going to need depth. I mean, it's an extreme example, and I'm a sampling of this, and I like that kind of basketball. So I think it could be very exciting. I just think there might be a transitional period in there. You got to get your kind of players, and that's what the transfer portal is for.
Well, again, I want to get into the Nico thing, but Caleb, does this grease the wheels off a fan base that does have a very strong social media presence that has enacted some change at times? Actually, Vol Twitter and Lady Vols fan base has as well. Does this help provide a soothing transition if it's an up and down pace? Because I think all three of us would agree that if you got to watch the three, you like the up and down Showtime style of basketball more, right?
Yeah, this is going to be what does it. But Vol Twitter, I'm just going to say, gets excited about everything. You know, they what was it, John? About 2 years ago, they were in love with Kelly Harper because she gave some tough halftime speech to Arkansas, and they're like, "That's my coach. Kelly Harper is tough. I love Kelly Harper." And then 2 years later, they wanted her fired. I mean,
well,
14 years ago, they fell in love with Derek Dooley because he won the press conference when he was hired at Tennessee. Okay, so it's like
I still remember when Lane Kiffin was hired, and everybody really wanted him to win the press conference. Sean, do you remember how he bowed back and forth, and he was so nervous? And he
was very nervous.
But everybody wanted him to win it.
Yeah, there's way too much. And I thought Kim Caldwell's press conference was one of the best introductory speeches I'd ever heard.
Really? That's strong.
Yeah, I did. I thought it was very good.
I thought Caleb and Shanda. Go ahead. One of the strongest you've ever heard in your career.
Yes. Is
Continue,
that okay?
Sir.
Well, yeah, I thought she was both came across as very confident, not just on the question I asked. I thought in general she came across very confident. She was also humble. And she also thanked a lot of people, her players, her coaches, the other schools that hired her. So I think there was some gratitude there. She introduced her family. It wasn't too long and it wasn't too short. I thought it was really well done. And I think, and I wrote about this when I heard a press conference, I could understand why Danny White hired her. She obviously made the same kind of impression when she had her interview. Again, if you're taking that job, you have to come across as confident. And I don't think she was faking it, obviously.
This is so interesting to me because I think it's one of the, and I'm sorry to get really sidetracked here, Caleb, but I want your input on this as well. It's one of the few times that I think the actual interview process has affected who got the job. I think most of the time ADs know beforehand. And the other time I'll go back to is when Kevin Stallings was interviewing for the Tennessee basketball job, and they thought it would be wise, Tennessee Athletic Director Doug Dickey, to take a phone call from Jerry Green in the other room of Stallings' house. Well, there was eavesdropped on, didn't like that, get the hell out of my house sort of thing. But it's the only two times I can remember what was said in the hiring process having a direct relationship John, to who ended up getting the job.
Yeah, that was that call you're referring to. There have been so many coaches searches, hard to keep them straight. But that was Tim Floyd, I think that
I'm sorry.
that he took a call from. Yeah, Jerry Green wasn't available at the time.
Kevin Stallings was actually in the car waiting for Doug Dickey. But anyway,
Kevin Stallings
yeah, I think. I mean, he obviously had an idea. I think he did. Yeah, he did research. I don't know who was on his search committee, and they put some time into this. I don't. I'm always kind of leery of interview process. Some people interview really well, but they can't do the job. But they're really good at interviewing, and they get a lot of jobs and fail at a lot of jobs. I mean, you look at her track record. I like the idea that she's won at 2 different places at 2 different levels, where I assume other schools. I got an email from someone who's familiar with that program, Glenville State, where she played. And it's not as though they have more, based on what he was saying, more research sources than other programs in that conference that she's competing against. So she distinguished herself at 2 levels, like Bruce Pearl did before he came here. He distinguished himself at several different levels. You win at all those. So that all factored into it. But I think sometimes you can, maybe Danny White knew what he was looking for, and he thought she might be the one, and then she delivered the goods in the interview, and so he said, "Oh yeah, I was right." So it kind of confirmed what he was thinking.
Speaking of delivering the goods, Caleb, I'll put this one on you. Her husband looks a lot like Danny White. How much do you think that helped White in the hiring process? I mean, John, it's got to help if you're trying to hire somebody that looks exactly like your spouse, right? Because they're already comfortable with the way you look.
Yeah. Dave, I never thought that, but I'm glad you picked up on it. Did you notice that, Caleb? Did you, when you were watching this, said, "Hey, man, he looks just like Danny White"? Did you think
I did not think that. All I thought was when she said he gave up his career, he's clearly going to give up coaching. I'm like, this guy is winning. This guy is winning. This guy is, every husband's dream.
This is a true story. When John came to me in, I believe, 2005 to say, "Would you be interested in working for the News Sentinel?" I got on Facebook, and was that a thing back then, or maybe it was MySpace? Anyway, I checked out his wife, and she had red hair, and I was like, "I'm in." That's what I did, John? He rolls his eyes for those on the audio platform.